All right. I'm gonna let you guys start, and Joe, if you want to kind of run it for a little bit, I got to run for just a couple minutes. So, sound good?
Sure, where are we at?
I'm in my office. Where are you at?
No, where are we at in the meeting?
We're just starting, man. No, we haven't done anything.
Okay, well, I'm dialed in, so who's here?
Oh, Ashley Smith, Jarek, and Nakia so far.
Yeah, I'm leaving my camera off because I'm eating lunch.
Sure.
Am I getting on right here?
Do me a favor.
Okay, all right. Uh, who was here last week?
Nakia was, I was, Jarek was. I don't know about Ashley. I
All right.
don't think so.
Okay, I got it. All
So,
right.
why don't you have Nakia start off? And because she was already saying that she's thought a little bit about what we talked about last week, but hasn't, locked herself
Yeah,
into anything. But maybe she can kind of explain a little bit deeper, and I'll be back in just about 2 minutes.
yeah. Where were you at last week, Nakia?
Well, last week I was talking about I guess we talked about how I need to define my target audience a little bit further. Because I was just saying I want to work with small businesses, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, and people who are passionate about what they do, which is sort of non-specific. And so because I don't really want to put myself in that kind of box, like, oh, I only want to work with specific types of businesses. I'm trying to figure out how I can define that further without kind of, saying I only want to work with certain types of businesses. Because really the thing is I need to find people who have money to spend on a website.
Sure.
Which, I mean, when you're kind of talking about startups or whatever, sometimes that's an issue.
Yeah.
But really, honestly, like what my passion is teaching people how to manage, like how to not just have a website, but how to keep it up, like how, the importance of maintaining your website and having, recurring content on your website and that thing. So,
Are you providing those services for reoccurring, or are you educating and then allowing them to go ahead and do it?
no, yeah. So I do. I have, in addition to like web packages, I also offer like training sessions, like boot camp for WordPress training. I also have like a maintenance plan for people to sign up for if they don't want to do that and they need help. But yeah, I do offer the education part of it. And I was thinking about maybe I should like write like an book or some kind of like guide to starting your WordPress website or something that I could offer to at a smaller price point to somebody who doesn't have a budget to pay me to do it to get them started. I don't know.
Sure. Well, I think going back to the first issue of defining a niche, let me tell you a little bit about what we did. We're not necessarily saying we'll only work with these industries. In fact, I'm very open to work from other industries. I think the primary objective with me defining that niche was, what am I going to go after? Like, what am I going to spend my marketing time and money on? Am I just going to broadly attract everyone, or am I going to make an effort to specifically go after those with a budget?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand the desire to want to work with these small business owners. I think your option really is is two options, right? It's kind of going in the direction you said, which is either kind of staying at that low price point, but offering smaller packages or smaller services in which you can still make money from these individuals who don't have a lot of money, but they've got some money to spend. But, I think that if you want to do website builds and things along that line, and get paid for your time, you're going to have to, for those things specifically, you're going to have to go after industries with money.
Okay.
That's just my thought process. Does anyone else want to weigh in on that? Anyone have any experience with that?
Yeah, no, I was going to say the exact same thing you said. Defining a niche isn't, of course it is about defining your business model and your business objectives, but it's more so about marketing. It's more so about, when you define a niche, let's say you work with musicians, then you should create a web page on your website that specifically speaks to musicians, and you should create content on your blog, or like you said, ebooks or videos that specifically speak to musicians so that you can attract those folks. It's not saying I only want to work with musicians. It's like he was saying, it's just helping you get your mind focused on where you want to, where you want to spend your marketing time and effort.
Right. Yeah. And building on that point too is that, how many meetings am I going to have, right, where I sit down with somebody only to find out after spending, so many hours bringing up the proposal, doing all that, to find out, this individual is not a good fit for me, and they don't have the money for me to actually make money. And I think that's the biggest thing I'm trying to avoid, and we're all trying to avoid with defining a niche is this idea of, okay, when someone, I want to minimize that, and I want to have kind of a qualifying process, right? A qualifying process in which I can say, okay, generally the people who are seeking me out from my marketing are going to be qualified leads. That's quality marketing, right? That's what you're trying to achieve for your clients in the same sense,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think another important thing to point out is you don't have to pick one niche. Like the agency that I work with, or work for, I should say, we target three main niches. Our clients are across the board. We have telecommunications companies, all kinds of different stuff, but we target technology SaaS, we target manufacturers, and we target healthcare. So, those are the three main targets, and that's where we spend a lot of our time, creating marketing content around those verticals or industries. But our clients come from all over the place. And the other thing I would say,
Absolutely.
mentioned, your passion is teaching people. Rather than creating guides that you would then sell for some type of monetary gain, I would say create smaller pieces of content like ebooks or a video series, and gate those behind a form, or hold webinars where you teach people stuff and make them trade their contact information, maybe a little bit about the size of their company or the industry they work in, to help build your email marketing list.
Right. Yep. And then you can remarket to those people, because ultimately, those pieces of content, in my opinion, their greatest value is because here's the thing is if I wanted to search right now for a WordPress, a basic training WordPress ebook, like I would probably find one pretty easily without having to pay for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially because of the popularity of content marketing and how saturated that market is right now, marketing general WordPress is, that's hard. That'd be a hard thing to do, because there'd just be so much out there, You're competing with, guys like Neil Patel, who that's what they do. They teach digital marketing, they teach WordPress, they teach these things, and it's all free content. And then they offer some services on the side, but they use their content to attract their clientele, and it'd just be a hard thing to do, I think.
Well,
especially going on a budget,
Yeah, and I think that's another big reason why it's important to define a niche for those. So you're focusing on specific keywords. The content may be exactly the same. So let's say you made a guide that was, how to update my WordPress website or how to maintain it or whatever. The information is the same regardless of your industry. But if you say, updating your music WordPress website, you're targeting a specific group, and the chances are if they're searching, like if they're putting their industry or their, the thing that they do in their search phrase, they're going to find you before they find some general piece of content.
Hey guys,
Right.
let me jump in real quick. So Bruce Peterson joined in here a little bit ago. So FYI, we work together. He's my old project manager from an old startup, and we did realestatedaily.com together. We just launched that. I don't know, 9 months ago or something. But Bruce, you mentioned you got your mic on. You had something to throw in there on that marketing stuff.
Yeah, I come at this from a little different perspective. I've developed a number of products, software applications, all the way from software applications to WordPress sites. I'm not a developer though. I'm more at the core a marketer. And so in listening to your marketing conversation, I just wanted to throw in a couple points for you guys to consider. I believe that the conversation about identifying a niche is an extremely important conversation. Okay, if you guys are focused on increasing your margins and finding customers that can and are willing to pay you what your rates are, I think you need to get very focused on your customer base and targeting. But I also think that presupposes something that I haven't heard, which is I think something that comes before identifying a niche is identifying your unique selling proposition. Something in marketing we call a USP, and it's independent of niche. Okay, what is and I think it's probably very important in the WordPress developer space because there's a lot of competition. You need to spend the time to really refine that unique selling proposition. What sets you apart from the other WordPress developers? What are the technical skills, so on and so forth. And I think until you define that unique selling proposition, it's very difficult to define a niche. But I would encourage all of you to think about that. It's kind of a tough thing to do. You need to spend some time really thinking about what makes you stand out. And once you have that unique selling proposition, it helps you identify your niche, and then you go after it with laser focus. And I think that's how you're going to find your best customers.
That's really interesting you say that, actually, because I've been thinking about this. I didn't have a terminology to put to it, but I was looking at a company, another agency, Human Made. I don't know if you're aware of them, but that quite clearly they say, we build scalable, WordPress applications, and part of what they do with that is very, very large sites with a lot of traffic is their specialty, as far as a technical specialty. And, the types of content they're putting out is, how to manage load balancing on AWS, or how to, something along those lines. And they're putting out content and ebooks associated with that. And, some of the success that I've seen that company have and grow with, because I was aware of them a couple of years ago, and just to see where they're at now is pretty amazing. And they're not necessarily targeting a specific industry. They have just a claim of distinction, kind of like what you were just saying. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually.
I think it's probably very important for the kind of work that you guys do because of the level of competition. That's the only way you're going to get your message through. There's so much noise out there. It almost doesn't matter what content you produce to market yourself unless you have a message that is going to jump off the screen that the potential customer is going to connect with. And you're only going to do that with hyper focus. So it's just something that I've learned over the years. And whether you're marketing your stuff through just standard content marketing strategies or social media, any of these places, There's so much noise that you have to, pry through to get the good customers. And if you don't, you're probably going to end up with the weaker customers, the customers that are going to, be much more concerned about price. They're going to be much more flaky about, application specifications and all of the kinds of things that you guys are trying to mediate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think zeroing down and finding your strength, specifically as an agency, that's something I need to do. I would say generally, out of being a full service digital agency, probably the development side of it is our strength.
One of the things that an old timer told me one time, and it applies to a lot of businesses, but it probably applies here as well. And that is, you can insert any profession, but the basic quote was, until you turn away or fire your first customer, you're not really in business. Until you're willing to say no to a potential customer or fire a current customer because they're getting out of line and it's no longer working for you, you're just negotiating how badly they're going to screw you.
Hey, so let me jump in again here quick. So Kendall, this is your first meeting, right? Yeah. So
yes, it is my first meeting.
Awesome. So what we usually try to do here, and we try to stick to it as best as possible. So sometimes we kind of go on tangents, but the whole purpose of the meeting or the goal is to kind of lay out where our pain points are right now, and to try to kind of use the group to figure out how maybe we can address those over like the next week, right? Those short-term, small step goals to try to get our processes in line, get more customers, all that good stuff. The idea behind it is, even though we pretty much already know what we need to do to get better usually, knowing that we got to come back here again next week and go, yeah, I didn't do that. It just, at least for me, it kind of makes me try a little bit more to actually do that, so I don't have to come in. Nah, I suck. Anyway, why don't you tell us a little bit about you quick and what you do? And
all right, so a little bit about myself. I am a senior student at Alfred State College. I'm just finished my capstone semester, and I'm currently looking for an internship or a part-time job to suffice for my internship as well here in New York City to graduate to get my bachelor's degree, because I can't even get inside the industry with it. So I've been applying since November and have not got any contact back, and it's been a real struggle. So I decided to go into freelancing, and I've just built my first site. I didn't build my first site. I hosted my first site ever. I'm having a little bit of trouble with it because I just added the SSL certificate. I'm trying to figure that out. But other than that, I have a background in C# and PHP, and I'm new to WordPress, and I'm just built my first custom theme, and now I'm just taking the skills that I just have and hitting the ground running and trying to pick up freelance work. And I have a meeting with this pizzeria for a while, and he's always is pushing me back, and now it's been like the fourth time he rescheduled. And his son, I showed his son the skills that I have and what I could produce, and the son is really interested, and he wants to do business with me because it would make their life a little bit easier. But the father seems to be very flaky about it. And I'm also part of the review lead. My Facebook is Danielito. I'm also Hispanic. I don't use my personal name in my social media. But I'm using review lead to actually step in as a forefront to start negotiating freelance projects.
So you need to absorb all of the marketing advice,
yeah,
all
everything.
of the processes advice, all of the tools advice, everything.
Yes, all of it. I'm just coming here and I'm going to just be listening and Also was a fraternity brother, and my main job in the fraternity was recruitment. So I'm pretty good with sales, and I also did a lot of community service events, like setting up events and throwing events, and like contacting different political figures around to do events around town. I was also president, and I did a lot of things like that as well. So I have the gift of gab, and I know I could talk, and I'm very personable, and I have a solid technical base.
If you don't mind me asking, what are you charging right now for your work?
I don't even have a client. My friend just called me about this yesterday, asked me how much I would charge, and because I haven't even have a client, I'm not even comfortable with giving them like an hourly price. But my friend was like, "You got to pick one." I'm like, I think I'm about worth 20 an hour.
Oh God.
No, especially not New York City. Here's the problem that almost every person new to this business does when they try to freelance is their confidence is so low that they'll do anything for a project, right? Even guys like me that have been doing this a long time, we still basically want to try to make these guys happy and get this business, and sometimes we have to force ourselves to say, no, this is the rate, this is the scope, this is what we're going to do. Don't undercut you, because here's what's going to happen. The lower you charge, the worse your client is going to be. They're going to want the moon for you. Charge $500 for a full website build, even if it's a simple WordPress site. It's too low, and these guys are going to want a $10,000 site for the $500 they gave you. And that's the way it always goes. The lower the project price, the worse the client is.
Yeah, this is
Think about
just a
you're running it up.
word of the. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, there's more. A lot of people, when they start out, they're thinking about the time it takes them to sit down and write the code or to, set up a WordPress site. You're not thinking about the time it's going to take you to go back and forth with a client and deal with other vendors possibly. And there's a lot more to running a business. You got to keep the lights on. You got to have payroll. You got to have accounting. And your clients have to pay for all that stuff. So, just as a rule, like a general reference, my agency charges what we don't do by the hour, but when we do a la carte stuff by the hour, it's $200 an hour.
Yeah, don't charge by the hour starting off. And honestly, I'm trying to push ourselves out of that. We actually just got rid of a retainer yesterday in here because I'm sick of them looking at us as an hourly employee. Especially being new, because you don't know what you don't know yet. You don't know how long this is going to take. That's the biggest hurdle for somebody new. We've banged out a ton of sites. We kind of know this site's going to take X amount, usually, as long as we keep it in scope, right? But for you don't know yet. So I would just say, okay, it's going to be, dude, I wouldn't charge anything less than $1,500 for even a simple WordPress site, and that's still too low. But if it gets you in the door to get that first project out and to get that on your portfolio, so be it. I wouldn't charge one penny under that, though. I mean, honestly, you should be more between that 3,000 to 10,000 range for a WordPress site. New York City, you should be up around 10 grand, honestly. But
yeah, I'm in Syracuse, New York, and I'm charging 10 grand projects.
Yeah. But if you listen, I get it though. You need to get your feet wet. You need to get something on the portfolio. You can't go after the whales, the big budget stuff quite yet. But if they can't pay you $1,500 for a website, it's not a good client. It's not somebody you want to deal with, because they don't see a value in what you're providing. And that's the other thing, is we're a value-based service. We're not a commodity. And so the challenge is putting that prospect's mindset in a value-based mindset as opposed to a commodity. You can't go to Walmart and pick a website up one size fits all for $300. It's just not the way it works. The way I do that here, and the way I'm actually pushing this a lot more this year, is we ask a series of discovery questions. I think I shared it in the group, my revised version of that yesterday. I start that off with, what is your actual problem? Your problem isn't you need a website. Your problem is you need more business, right? Usually, or whatever. Or what you have is taking too much of your time. It's too hard to use. So it's money and frustration equals money. So you start with that. you start to put a value to the problem. Then you say, okay, why is this a problem right now? Is it because your technology's too old, or you just don't have it, or what is it? And then you go into, okay, what's your budget? Now, how does your budget stack up against the value of your problem? Now, obviously, if the value of the problem is $100, they're not. It doesn't make sense to do this project anyway. You walk away. I turn people down all the time that come in here and say, "Hey, we're starting a beef jerky business up, me and my husband, because we just retired. Can you build us a website?" No, because we're going to charge you several $1,000s, and you don't even know if you're going to make any profits. So, uh, but once you start to put them in that value-based mindset, you get a lot less of that. Well, but I can get this on Craigslist for $300 from India or some crap like that, or my nephew could build this for $100. Well, that's fine. You just solved your problem. Go to it. I'm not your guy.
Mm.
But that's the number one piece of advice I think I could give somebody just starting out is don't undercut yourself, even if you're not the greatest developer in the world, which if you're just starting off, you don't know all the little tricks yet, but it's still valuable, right? You're still putting your time in there.
Right.
And I mean, would you work in a factory for
No.
$20 an hour?
No.
Maybe, but you wouldn't have any overhead, right? You wouldn't have to. I mean, we have to pay for tools, we have to pay for rent, we have to pay for electricity, we have to pay, even if you're working out of your house, you still have to factor that kind of stuff in there. So, when I first started this agency, I thought, holy cow, $100 an hour is a lot of money. But when you start to factor in, we have to pay for Confluence and HipChat and all these browser stack and all these other stupid tools at nickel and dime us, Adobe Suite. And then on top of that, the rent and all the other stuff,
It's funny because
thousands of dollars.
I have an associate's degree in digital media animation, and I do logo branding all myself too. That's
So I would say your goal, and I'm going to pick a goal for you, Jared or Kendall. Set a value, a price that you're going to do stuff for. You know what I mean? Like I said, if it's like a WordPress site without any custom functionality, I would say set that sucker no lower than $1,500, and that means it is straight informational, a handful of pages, no custom plugins, no paid plugins, none of that kind of crap. And also make sure you get the client expectations up front when you go into this. Do what we call a scope of work sheet, right? A proposal with a scope of
a
new
needs
line item.
assessment, right?
What's that?
Needs assessment. Find out the needs of the project
Yep.
from.
Yep. And put that down on paper and make them sign that before you start the project, because the next problem every new developer or designer runs into once they start a project is they don't define the expectations or what you will and won't do going into it, and now you're indentured servant for the rest of your life for $1,500 or whatever. Well, they're like, well, I thought we were going to get an e-commerce store with this, and you go, no, that was never talked about before, and they go, well, we just kind of assumed that was part of the deal, and now it's you against them, and you hate them and they hate you. And that's one thing we have to tighten up this year. And because on some of the smaller WordPress projects we've done, we've been really lax on the R&D and not so good on the SOWs. Now on the bigger projects we're pretty tight, but even the smaller ones, I literally had to freeze a project yesterday and just about lost a partner that sends us a lot of work because they just keep wanting more and more and more and more. And the stuff they're wanting is super custom. It's like it's adding another 20 hours, another 30 hours on top of being over scope already. And so even we have to tighten that up. But going brand new into it, do not jump into anything without a proposal and an SOW signed that says, I'm doing this, 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 and this. You're doing that, 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 and that. Now, if they need to give you images, if they need to give you copy, if they need to give you anything, you need to have a schedule on that as well, saying you agree that you're going to have these images to us by this date, you're going to have this copy to us by this date, and you're going to do reviews by this date, and our estimated launch date is now. And one final piece of advice on this, and I'll stop, is make sure you set, a lot of times we'll do like a 50 up front, 50 when it's done sort of a thing, and every new developer wants to do the 50 when it's done when it launches. here's what's going to happen. They're going to find every single freaking reason in the world to not launch this website, right? They're going to say, well, we need to change this copy a little bit and we need to swap this image out. Like, can we change the font a little bit here, some crap like that? And that's going to go on forever. And you were thinking you were going to get paid on this date, and 3 months down the road, you're like, how in the hell am I going to pay my bills? I've been expecting this money. So you put in that SOW that, you know, we're not going to delay payment just because we're nitpicking and fine tuning, and you don't have time to get me assets and you don't have time to get me copy. I mean, we've had clients disappear for months at a time, you know, before we went to that model where we say, no, you're going to pay us regardless on this date. And there, especially the year before last, we got to the end of the year, we stopped taking new projects because we had half a dozen projects still half done, not paid for, that had sat there for 6 months. So that's the advice. I'll let other people jump in. Joe, how you locked in your dental deal,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, I just scheduled it out. Yeah, maybe look at it. I mean, I've been doing a lot of stuff as far as project management and switching between everything, and I never have been able to get like a process I really liked. I don't know. I'm committed right now to kind of. 'Cause I'm trying to think long term too, and where I'm going to go when I start getting people on a team and stuff like that, rather than just freelancers with access to stuff occasionally. And so I think because I was doing a lot of research about like Scrum and workflow and things like that, and I think I want to evolve into that. I think where I'm at right now, I'm just going to stick with the Kanban system, and you know, I liked your system there with blocked and things like that. That was smart.
It's honestly the way we have our Trello board working right now, and Bruce can attest to this because he uses it a little bit with us. We don't use it probably as tight as we should with Bruce because it's, you know, it's a little bit different deal. But you know, I really cracked down on a couple of our partners in the last few months, making them use that board with us because what was happening, you know, well, the same guy where I froze this project yesterday. It got to the point where he wasn't using the boards, and when he did, he didn't use them right. And one of our developers that was working on his project stopped using it because he wasn't using it. And he started calling me, wanting to know where everything is at. He was saying that nothing's been done. My developer, saying, well, it's all been done. And I have no idea because I pulled the board up and there's nothing there. Last time it's touched was October or something, right?
Yeah.
And so when I cracked down on that and made everybody start using that again, get all the cards on the board, there's no more question on what's done, what's not done, where it's at, why it's
Have
blocked.
you used one board?
Per project, every project gets its own
Yeah,
board. We
right.
have teams set up, so each partner is a team, so they only see their boards, and then yeah, every single project gets its own board. But
Right.
that's
So the way
you froze, Joe. You gone?
You know what? If I could, then I might have to dip out. But I just wanted to follow up the comments about marketing with one other point, and that is it sort of dovetails with what Spencer was saying about how to identify your value proposition. This idea of a unique selling proposition is very tightly tied to that. Okay, and it's going to feel like a pain in the ass to take time out of your day, say over the next week. Say you make a commitment to come up with that unique selling proposition. And what I'm really talking about, that I want to leave you with this thought. If you know, go with the standard definition. If you're in an elevator and you've got 45 seconds to describe to somebody who might be a prospect what you do and why they should consider working with you, you've got less than a minute to tell this person. In other words, this proposition, this value proposition that you're defining, you really need to think about distilling it down into 1 or 2 sentences. And it's hard work. It's a hard thing to do. But once you do that, you've now solidified in your mind your own value proposition. And one thought on going through that process is, this is an old adage, and it's a cliche because it's true. It's much easier to sell a painkiller than it is a vitamin. So when you go through that process, like Kendall was talking about, identify their needs, okay? What you really want to do is identify their pain points, okay? People are willing to pay a lot more when you can solve problems that they've been dealing with for a long time. The site is slow, it's this, it's that, it's all this kind of stuff. It costs too much to maintain, okay? Identify those pain points, and that becomes the sole focus of your pitch to them, okay? But take that step back and think about that unique selling proposition. And if I'm standing next to you somewhere and you've got 1 minute to tell me why I should hire you, okay, you need to be able to tell them in just a couple of sentences and be really on point. It's a bit of a task to go through. You know, developers especially don't like doing this kind of stuff, but I'm telling you, it will pay off in the quality of customers you get, the number of customers you get, and it's well worth the effort. And if anybody in this group wants to, you know, use myself as a sounding board, if you take the jump and go through this whole marketing thing where you are going to really rebrand yourself or brand yourself, drop me an email, and I don't mind being a sounding board. I have to blast off for another meeting, but I will come back if Spencer invites me back, and thank you very much.
Yeah, come back every week, Bruce.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll see you.
Thanks, Bruce.
Bye.
Yeah, and
Really
that kind of goes into one other thing real quick. It goes back to what I said, get to the actual problem, right? They're always going to say, well, our website sucks. That's not their problem, right? The problem is they're not getting enough business. And that's a sales thing, right? It's always, what is the actual problem, or what is your actual need, I suppose. But because everybody's always going to tell you something that's really not what you need to solve, unless you ask them and you push on them on it. Because, you know, like I said, in our discovery questionnaire, the first question is, what is the actual problem? And they're still going to say, my website's not responsive. That's not really the problem we need to solve. Yes, making it responsive may solve their actual problem, but their actual problem is a lot of their customers are using phones now to access their website, and it's hard to use, it doesn't look good, so they're jetting, and it's costing them money, right? That's the problem. The responsive bit is just a way to help solve it. So, Jarek, what about you, man? You ready to start this business or what?
Well, I don't. You might remember what we talked about last time. They gave me a raise this week, so they're making it a lot harder for me to do that.
Yeah.
They asked me to go speak at a telecommunications conference coming up in February, and gave me a bonus and a raise for it. So
Yeah, it makes it pretty tough to walk away, huh?
I mean, they've always paid me well, so that's always been the issue. Is
Well, if you do this, it's never going to be because you want to make more money. You know, it's going to be
right. Yeah, it's
your own guy and stuff.
peace of mind and freedom and all that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Who else we got? We got Ashley in here. I know she's just on chat, but Ashley, tell us a little bit about you. What do you do, and where are you going to go, and what do you want to do? While we're waiting on her to type, I'll go back. Well, I guess I haven't said anything too much, so I guess I'll go. Like I said before, my main pain points has been tightening up our R&D and getting the expectations with some of these partners that we haven't done that well with, especially where we consider them to be smaller, kind of not that important sort of things. Those are the things that keep hitting us and hurting us and costing us lots of money. And so my New Year's resolution was to be a much bigger dick. And so far I've been implementing it, and I'm definitely getting pushback, but surprisingly nobody has actually walked away and told me to piss off yet. The one agency we work with, I really thought it was the end of our relationship when we were going to do this call. Surprisingly, they were super nice. They got it. They get it. They're in the same business, you know. Even though they're a design/marketing company, they get it. And I think a lot of the problems we've had with them, and they give us some pretty big projects with some pretty big companies. I think their problem is they just don't know how what questions to ask and how to really tighten up their discovery process as it relates to what we do. So I think forcing them to do these discovery questions deeper is going to help. And just I've kind of let myself get pushed around a little bit, especially this last year, where I say scope is this, and they go, well, that's never going to work. We got to get it within this X budget, and we got to get this. I say 240 hours, and they say we have to have it in 130 hours, and well, I want the project, so I'm like, all right, we'll figure out a way to make it happen. But of course, it ends up 240 hours anyway, and guess who eats all those free hours? Me.
Have you,
So it's
have
just
you
no more.
discussed or have you thought about proposing to them to get you involved sooner, like maybe during the sales conversation?
No, yes, that's been a discussion. It could because what they've tended to do in the past is go and sell these deals and write checks that my ass can't cash. And then when I say no, they say, well, we've already agreed to this with the client. We have to do it. Well, technically we don't, because I can say fucking no, I'm not going to do it. Then what are you going to do? You know? So, that discovery questionnaire being as thorough as it is now, we should be able to flesh out the majority of stuff, and the stuff that looks ambiguous to us at that point, we can go back to them before we ever do a proposal and say, listen, I need clarification on this. Before, a lot of the SOWs I would do on the line item, it would be like, this functionality is going to do this stuff, right? It's going to have a button, a checkout button or some crap like that. But what I failed to do is really flesh out, okay, walk me through what exactly happens when we click this button, right? And it was mainly because of me being lazy, and half because half the time they didn't know either. And there was a lot of this, well, we'll figure that piece out later. And that always kills us.
So my agent um, has historically talking about. We have a robust creative brief, and the salesperson would be the one who had all the conversations with the prospect. They they would write up the SOW that kind of briefly outlined what was going to happen. They'd close the deal. They'd share the creative brief document with the client for them to then fill out. And the problem with that was we would get these creative briefs back, not having been a part of the preliminary conversations. And the document is substantial. I mean, it's huge, and the client wants to get started. They don't want to fill out a document, so they do the absolute minimum that they have to do. So the only way we found, and we've been doing this for about a year now, to alleviate that problem is once the salesperson gets to the point to where they have qualified this prospect and it's looking like we're going to go into business with them, that's when they get me involved or some other strategist involved. And before an SOW is ever even written, the person who's going to run the account has that conversation. And the person who's going to run the account is the one who writes the SOW.
Right.
And then fills out the creative brief. And if there's any holes in the creative brief, then we might go back to the client and say, hey, a couple questions that we forgot to ask, here you go. But for the most part, we've taken that off of our clients' plates because it just wasn't beneficial, really, because they were being lazy about it.
Well, the end client, now, if I was working with a direct client, our proposal and our discovery is way different than it is with like a partner agency, right? If I'm dealing directly with the client, no way am I asking them to just fill this form out, because I'm just going to get absolute dog shit back from them. Excuse my language. That needs to be a face-to-face. First, like Jarek said, you got to qualify them first. You ask 4 or 5 high-level questions. A, does it make sense? B, do you even have a budget? Because if you're coming in here with $1,000, we just will stop it right now. Once you get past that simple qualification, then you can get in to that discovery. And like I said, if it was a direct client, that would ideally be a face-to-face, or at least a phone conversation with me and the decision maker, the single one decision maker, not a committee, and we would go through those kind of one by one. Um, for the agencies we work with, I give them this because I expect them to be asking their clients, the end client, these questions in that sort of a situation, right? Um, but yeah, that's so. Jarek, on your process on that at your agency, how long does that process usually take from when they first come to you with the concept to where you actually sign that SOW? What's your time frames usually on that process?
The time frame varies.
Excuse me? What is an SOW? I hear the
Oh,
acronym.
Scope of work.
They-
It's very important.
All right.
It's your Bible.
It's
So-
basically the contract between you and the client that outlines what the project looks like, what the timeline is, for what.
Exactly what the deliverables are.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of templates for this online while I'm looking for them, but most of them are like, they're either I must be too incompetent to understand, or the templates that I'm finding are not right, and my Googling skills aren't good. Could you?
We built ours off of the UGuru's proposal template. Now I've
UGuru?
modified it a lot, but I know Joe was playing with it last week. Another guy
Oh
on
yeah,
here used
the
it.
proposal I just signed was built off that one.
If you still have that, you want to share that with Ken?
Yeah, my computer. The reason why I fell off there is my computer forcibly updated. So I am currently not on my computer. I'm staring at a screen. So, yeah, no, I'll put it in chat though when I can get back on.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's going to take some tweaking to make it your own, but it gives you a really good starting point.
Yeah, and what I really liked about that was how much thought was put into things that generally creep on scope. You know, like how many lines of revisions? You know, what does that look like? You know, how many revisions in the revisions? You know, what is, you know, so like, okay, I'll deliver a website, and with this website is the planning page, and you're going to get exactly these deliverables from that, and that has a set rate of X. And what that achieves is that all your time is accounted for. Not only that, but if you use that proposal right, you can use that in the sales process to really build up your value before you even show them the price. You know, when I sat down with my client, my client, but when I was pitching him, I mean, I really just sat down and I walked him through each step of the scope of work and built that value by explaining why we were doing what we were doing along each step of the way. And then when, you know, the price came out, I didn't have to blink, and neither did he, because the value was already established.
Mm-hmm.
It really shows, and part of what's so important about doing a scope of work like that too, I mean, obviously, like, yes, like that saves me from wasting an incredible amount of money, like not considering things and not getting paid for things, but it helps the client understand that what I do isn't just throw a template together and throw some content up. You know, I'm a professional service, and what I'm doing will drive you sales, and it's a proven process to do that.
Yeah, dude, I had the same partner that we struggled with yesterday that I really thought was going to be gone. We saved it, I think, but he literally came to me yesterday morning before everything else went to crap and wanted to know if I could just redesign some dude's old WordPress site for now until they're ready to rebuild it down the road, which God knows when. You know, can't we just slap a new theme in there? Would that be 5 hours? Well, maybe, I don't know, but I don't want to do it because I don't really care about it. Why would I want to piss around for 5 hours that's going to bite us in the ass because I know he's going to want to tweak every fucking page of it, right? So
yeah,
it's even these other consultants and agencies and stuff sometimes don't see the value in what we do, and sometimes we just got to be a dick and go, I'm not going to do that, find somebody else to do it, good luck with it.
That's
yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and I mean, it is my job though, as a service provider, to educate either my potential client or my client, you know, that what my service really is. You know, and if I'm not
if I'm not educating them in that sense and they don't know the value, unless they're just being hard-headed and they're just like, well, no, I can get that online. Like, after I explain what I truly do and I show them through like what I plan to do for them, and they still don't understand the value of what I do, then at that point, they're just not even worth my time. But if I'm not educating them and I'm not showing them what I do, because frankly, people don't know. If I try and talk to anybody about this industry or what I do outside of this industry, they just look at me like I'm crazy and I'm speaking Latin.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's part of what I have to do for my client. And what I find is that when I do that, the whole price problem, the whole nitpicking, the whole what am I getting for what, can I get this too and this too, and can I, I don't get it anymore, really, And part of what I did on that, proposal was all the traffic generation services that are on there. I added as optional itemizations, which was really helpful because a lot of clients like to nitpick, and what they do instead is, I made the website build a flat rate and with a retainer on top of it, which was, and I titled that Project Core Investment, and then all the optional itemizations for anything from branding to traffic generation to marketing assets and things along those lines, I made as optional itemizations, and instead they nitpicked on that, and they only selected a couple of those bonuses really, and it just made them not even like fight me on the project price
Hey,
itself.
did you get a chance, Joe, to try that plugin I sent you?
Not yet.
So
Not
I'm
yet.
still working on that, but I think I'm gonna end up building this out so I can just release it just as a free plugin, I think, because I'm starting to really like it now that I've got the PDF generator and stuff hooked into it. Obviously, I have to do some design work and shit on it, but if you guys, especially you newer guys, want it, what it is, it's just a plugin you can install into your own WordPress site, and then in the back end, you can build your proposal template in like a WYSIWYG editor. And so you always start with your template, and then what I've got is a handful of fields for to just plug in like the company or the client name, the client phone number, and that stuff. And it'll auto populate all of the stuff in the WYSIWYG already for you. So everywhere you need the partner name and all that. And then all you gotta do is hit generate PDF, and it'll spit out a PDF version of it for you. It's been an issue I've had, just a pet peeve the last year or so. It takes me sometimes 5 hours to really sit down and do a good proposal in SOW if it's a bigger project. And there's a lot of redundant nonsense in it, and so I just needed a way to consolidate our proposals and streamline them. So
So, did we just to kind of get back on track a little bit here, Bruce? Did we ever like introduce you and go through the whole what are your pain points situation and everything along those lines?
Bruce took off already. He had a meeting. We got to keep him out
Oh, that's
hustling.
fine. All right.
Honestly, Bruce is when I first really got into this stuff, um, not doing just my own stuff. I went to work for him. He was a project
Yeah.
manager on a startup that I worked on for about 4 years. And all he's ever done his whole life is he builds up tech companies and then sells them. So he's pretty
Yeah,
handy at it. He's pretty good.
he dropped a really nice nugget of wisdom there that,
Yeah, he's been around the block
I,
a few times. He's made some money. He's pretty good at
yeah, like,
raising investment dollars too. And so he's the guy that we did Real Estate Daily with. So we're kind of just equity partners on that deal. It was kind of a side thing outside of the agency. Um,
okay.
but he's really kind of getting into the content marketing strategy stuff now for that particular site, and um, that's his story.
Yeah, no, that was
That's super
interesting when
cool.
he was talking about with not only finding a laser focus for, your industry and your target audience, but a laser focus as far as a claim of distinction and what sets you apart, which is I mean, that's brand, right? Like that's branding in a greater scheme, but at the same time, branding does in an industry like ours have to be considered on a deeper level because of the competition. It's just, which is
Well,
great.
there's so many people out there just building websites, right?
Right.
What separates you from the dude in India doing it for $200 or whatever? Honestly, your value proposition is usually going to revolve around some sort of a
Like,
strategization.
could I interject in here? For instance, with the review lead, one of my friends who is in network marketing, we was talking about going into business together a couple months ago, and now we're trying to come up with a strategy. And he came up with the idea of going to marketing and doing marketing for small medical firms with private practices. So I just went inside this the local dental office around here and asked them if I could speak to the boss. Walked right in, cold walk in, and they asked me if I had a business card. Obviously, I'm new at this. I don't have all my ducks in a row yet, but I'm going in door to door so far, offering the review lead service at that.
Well, side note on that, Kendall.
Mm-hmm.
We just released a HIPAA form plugin, so you always feel free to use that.
Oh, great! And the thing is, my mom used to work at the biggest hospital here in the South Bronx, and she's friends with the CEO, and just pushed out my resume there, hopefully to see if I could get an internship. I'm going to use that experience as leverage to talk to other small hospitals. Say, hey, I work here. I build their systems. I understand how it all works. I could provide you this service because I have this background experience.
No, I know. I found you guys in that agency masterminds group, and they're probably going to hate me for this, but if you're using review leads, right? That's a agency kind of review management platform.
Right.
I really suggest checking out Grade.us. It's a white label agency platform, and it's really I think it's extraordinarily more powerful than them and much better priced. Just a thought. Don't tell anybody in that group that I did that. 'Cause that's the product that they push, Spence.
Oh, that's where you poached those 800 members or whatever?
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all fair. Everything's fair in business, right?
One thing I'll say that's kind of
interesting. No, I mean it's not like it's my platform or anything. Everything we do in this group is completely free of charge. We're not putting a webinar out. We're not doing none of that. And I just know that review leads. It's interesting, but there's certainly better software out there.
What's up, Jarek? What'd you say?
I was just going to say, going back to the conversation about USPs and value propositions, one thing I've always found interesting about the agency that I work for is the majority of contracts that we close every year are websites. But we don't put ourselves out there as a web design firm. What our business model is what we're truly looking for is strategic marketing partnerships with year-long retainers.
Exactly.
And people will come to us knowing that that's what we do, and of course we also do websites, but it's always part of a bigger strategy or goal. So our unique value proposition is we build websites to convert visitors to leads and turn leads into sales. So
right.
Yeah,
right, what you should always be doing,
honestly,
hold on a
minute.
So
I think that would be
is like what we do when we go after direct clients is the website is a side factor. What we're really trying to do is figure out how to build their online presence and how to maybe bring more business in online, but how to also leverage something like a website to help them close more sales based on what they're already doing. that's kind of, I guess, maybe our approach to it is it's really not, hey, we want to build you a website. Because honestly, who cares? And it's just a conversation about, well, our website doesn't do anything already anyway. The conversation has to be, most people have a website, right, already. So it's got to be, yeah, you got this piece of crap sitting there. Let's figure out a way to actually use it to make your direct mail stronger, to make your email drip marketing better, or like what Jarek probably does a lot of is the landing pages and the form gated sort of content pieces, the honey, the catchers, to bring people in, get their contact information, then you can whack them with the actual sell. But yeah, don't ever approach it as, hey, I looked at your website and it sucks. I'd like to rebuild it. And they go, why?
Well,
And
and I
you
think
go, well, because it's not responsive. And they go, big fucking deal.
That's what I do right now.
Don't do that.
you have the skill set. I think it's important that you always start every conversation with the prospect to talk about goals and pain points, because it's like you're saying, Spence, it's not about a tactic. It's not about, I know how to put stuff on social media or I know how to do content marketing. It's about, being a consultant and saying, all right, you tell me what you're trying to accomplish this year and let me think about that for a minute and let you know what you need to do to accomplish that. That may be redesigning your website. It may not, and I think that's what made it, the agency I work for so successful. You don't come out there and say, we're a web design firm or we're a content marketing firm or we're this or we're that. We don't focus on tactics. We focus on, we're a strategic partner that's going to help you get to where you're trying to go.
Or technical stuff either. Don't go saying PHP and JavaScripts and WordPresses and Joomlas and crap like that.
But once again, that's back into tactics, which is the same idea. But I think that I very clearly go to approach my clients with, yes, we're ROI focused. Like, yes, like we're like what is, and that's what my initial meeting looks like. I'm asking the questions. And I'm positioning myself more as a doctor than anything else. As I'm sitting there and I'm asking questions and I'm getting to know their business, how their margins work, how their numbers work, what's going, like where their pain points are, where they're losing money, why, why aren't they getting customers they need here? Do you really need customers where you think you need customers? Who are you putting yourself into the market as? Who are you presenting yourself as? Does that line up with your goals and your business? All of those questions, right? And what I find is that I'm curious about that whole, what he was talking about was positioning myself in the market in that same way. I mean, I feel like every agency is out there saying that we're ROI focused, we build websites that convert, I don't know. I may be wrong on that, but I really do. I feel like that's not a unique value proposition. That's certainly a value proposition. Well, I just feel like it's.
Sorry, go ahead.
Saturated message.
Well, and that was the other thing I wanted to bring up earlier when we were talking about USPs is there's nothing new under the sun. It's almost impossible to be truly unique where you're the only person doing something. What it boils down to is, can you walk the walk? Can you prove that you know how to do what you're saying you know how to do? I mean, to me, it's not about you've got something shiny and new that's different than everybody else in the world. It's that you're at the top of what you do. It may not be different than what others claim that they can do, but you can do it better, because yeah, you're right. There's a lot of people out there saying that that's what they do. As a matter of fact, the people that my agency competes with, 100%, that's what they all say they do. But we rise to the top because we've proven it year after year. And the other thing I'll say is, the ROI conversation. Every client I have has that conversation with me, and almost every time I tell them, I'm never going to make you any promises unless you can show me for the last 3 years exactly what you've been doing and the results that it's netted you, so that I can take that data and optimize or do better. I'm never going to be able to say, you're going to get X number more visitors, you're going to get X number of more leads, because the problem you run into over and over again is most people who come to you for help for marketing is because they weren't doing it right to begin with. So they don't have that historical data, and they can't. I have a client yesterday I had this conversation with. We're doing PPC for them in social media advertising, and they were trying to tell us, well, I need to know, what click through rate, what impression rate. They wanted all these benchmarks that we were going to set, and I said, look, I can put some arbitrary bullshit industry average numbers up there for you so that we have a target to shoot for. I said, but you have no historical data for this, A, and B, industry averages are a joke because, there's so many variables. What's the offer? How much better are you? How big is your brand? How much brand recognition do you have? I mean, there's too many variables for me to say, we're going to hit this or such and such metric. I said, I tell you what, after 6 months, when we've got our own set of data based on what we've been doing, I'll be happy to give you some metrics at that point,
Well,
But
even
we
then,
don't come
you
out of the
can't
gate talking
you
about
can't
ROI.
you can't guarantee ROI or traffic numbers or click-through numbers. You just can't, because you can't. Anybody that does is disingenuous, because
Right.
what if Google changes tomorrow, or whatever? There's
Well,
just no
Facebook is
way.
changing right now,
Yeah,
So yeah,
I mean, the way I approach that too, anyway, is yes, we're gonna do everything we know how to do to set you up for success. It's got to be better than what you're doing now. Nothing, right? But I can't guarantee
Right.
you. And honestly, I think we have to disable a subscription account this week, because uh, I think they're in that mindset of it's a small insurance agency in a really competitive market, and she's complaining that she's not getting enough extra sales to justify her $300 a month freaking website, um, which we host and everything else. I'm gonna have to turn it off because she hasn't paid for almost 3 months now. So it's, you can't make guarantees like that, and we don't make guarantees like that. It specifically says in our proposals and SOWs that we do what we can to set you up for success, but there's also things they have to do as well on their side, and if they fail to do those, it's all going to fall apart. Um, so it's tough. That's why I try to stay in that gray area on this marketing stuff. I don't full on go out and go, yeah, we want to do SEO for you and stuff like that, because I don't know. I'd rather stay mostly a development shop. Now, yeah, when we go after direct clients, we have to set ourselves up as a strategy first, try to bring in more business. But I like to push more on let's make what you do now better kind of stuff, as opposed to saying, yeah, we're going to get you ranking in the search engines on page one for freaking every keyword you ever dreamed of. And um, it's a tough game.
It is. I mean, it depends on who you're going after too. I
Sure.
don't know. I mean, I've done pretty well as far as the SEO stuff, and I mean, I don't know if that's just because everyone in my city's retarded, but like, no one's really doing it very well here, that I'm competing with. I mean, there's one big digital agency here that I'm really competing with, and they do good stuff, but
Well, and the direct
I don't
clients
know.
that we go after, though, the types of niches that we kind of focus on, they're not super big budget. Let's do a full-blown SEO campaign types of people, right? They're smaller, like dental clinics and insurance agencies, stuff like that. There's no way we're doing an off-site SEO campaign in earnest for anybody like that. Sure, we'll help you get set up in the locals, and we'll show you how to improve your
Yeah.
rankings a little bit in the
I mean,
locals.
if you can bring in, like, say you got a dental client, right? Small dental office, 2 leads a week or a month for them is probably lifetime value of 30 grand, right? And with an overhead of maybe 3,000 each. And these are numbers I've gotten from my last dental. This last dental client is. I mean, what I'm looking at there is that if I can, just with local SEO, bring in 2 people a month through their website more than they had before, I've achieved that value and then some. If I bring them 1,
Yeah.
You know, especially with those high value services that to market for them with budgets. I think it's something that you know, there's a lot of opportunity there.
Well, at the end of the day, I guess the way I look at it is if we just need to make more sales. I don't care where they come from. I don't care if they come from your existing marketing campaigns and we make your close rates higher. Or if it comes from brand new traffic out of a search engine. I don't really care where it comes from. To me, with these types of clients, low hanging fruit is leveraging what they already do, and I don't have to lock myself, or I don't have to put myself in a position for these guys to come back and go, well, I'm not getting that much more traffic. Well, all right, but what I can say is, are you getting more sales? Um, and it has nothing to do with anything other than SEO just scares the hell out of me because it changes so damn much, and I spend more of my time focusing on building stuff. But
Yeah.
someday, honestly, I'd like to get to the point where I could bring in a full-time SEO guy. Now, if I had somebody that could do this all day, every day, and live and breathe it, I'd do it. But I can't do it part-time and do a good job at it. I guess that's what it boils down to. We don't have the capacity to focus hard enough on that to really do it right.
I don't even
I think
know SEO anymore.
it depends also on your deliverables too, right? This goes back into the scope of work because SEO can be a very elusive thing, right? As far as like what someone expects, in the same sense as these other websites and stuff, but even more so, right? Because you can't see it, and the only thing you have is these KPIs that don't necessarily even mean anything, depending on what's going on, right? So what I find is that I don't necessarily say, you know, I'm going to rank you number one for all your services in these areas, you know, for your top 10 opportunities or whatever. You know, I'm going to say something more like, well, you know, I'm going to very clearly, you know, offer these deliverables, you know, and these are the actual things I'm going to do. And this is going to help you move up in your rankings based on our research on what you should rank for, right? Which doesn't say, you know, you're going to be number one ever and you're going to be the best, but it says that, you know, what I do, you know, and I know with what I do is that, you know, it is going to boost you up. You know, you are going to, I mean, I've never had a client that I did this stuff for and like they didn't go up in their rankings at all, you know.
Right.
Like, pretty generally, it's a pretty significant increase. And to be honest, most of it is on-site stuff. I'm not sitting there. I mean, I do some SEO copywriting and stuff, but I'm not sitting there link building, you know, all day, every day, and doing all that crazy stuff. Like, it's, you know, it's schema markup. It's making their SERP results more click-through and stuff like along those lines. And I mean, a lot of local SEO, like directories and stuff like that. And figuring out what industry-specific places they should be listed on. Review generation, review management. And it makes a difference, you know. Big difference. Usually on their conversion rate, really. Right? Like people, they may even stay in the same spot, but just because of how I've optimized their SERP listings, their click-through rate doubled or something like that, you know, and they're actually being led down a marketing path.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at progress on a board at the moment, so got distracted. No, yeah, I mean, I get it. It's just not something that I've wanted to push on too much. And honestly, I haven't even pushed on direct business much like I wanted to. That was a big goal of mine last year, was to go after more of these subscription direct client stuff, and we got so bogged down in a handful of bigger partner deals that we didn't pull in that many. We pulled in half a dozen, I think. So, mm,
6 new direct clients.
yeah, subscription deals. that's really what I wanted to go after last year, was start getting that recurring a little higher. Now I'm kind of switching that over to hopefully maybe this HIPAA plugin and stuff will start to build that recurring a little easier, a little faster. What I like about the plugin stuff is we don't have to keep building stuff. We build it, and sure we'll update it and maintain it, but once it's there, and the masses can just come by it.
Sure.
Uh,
Sure.
sorry, I didn't catch your name. The guy with the hat in the office.
Oh, Spencer. It says
Spencer.
Code. I probably should change that for my name, not the company name. Yeah.
Well, Spencer, you develop plugins, correct?
Mhm.
I'm also interested in developing plugins. If you have any resources that you would like to share on plugin development.
Pippin plugins/learn.
Pippin plugins/learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's pippinplugins.com/learn. What is it? Hold on.
Honestly,
I posted in the group a second ago.
WordPress plugins are so stupid simple. Compared to something like a Joomla
Oh, yeah.
component or something, all it really is you create a directory with whatever you want the name to be. You create a style sheet, a style CSS, and you create a main PHP file with, usually it's plugin name.php. And
You don't even need a style sheet for
you do.
plugins.
Oh, no, not
Just a
that's
theme.
themes, just themes. Yeah, you don't even need a style CSS. You just need one single file, one PHP file. And in the top in the comments, you just say, this is my plugin name. Here we go. Yay. And then you go look in the dashboard and there it is.
What?
Yeah,
I'm not
I mean,
do
there
this
is
on my
so
side.
much.
Okay. You said which website? Pimpin plugins? Was that it?
Pippin, I think you said.
Pippin?
Honestly, look at the Hello Dolly plugin that comes in the default WordPress. Just look at the Hello Dolly thing. That basically is the basic plugin that you could start from. Now, if you know how to do, classes and Ajax functions and stuff like that, you do all that stuff. But start small. Just make a Hello World plugin based off that Hello Dolly, and there's a plugin. Everything else is just JavaScript and.
Thank
You had
you.
a history in PHP and right?
Yes, I do.
So I mean, I'm assuming you know about object-oriented programming and things along those lines. Like some great. So I mean, look, dude, it's gonna be so easy for you. There is so much documentation on WordPress development that it's unbelievable. It's like nothing else on the planet. If you want to know how to do something, you Google it, and it's right there.
So there are some tricks.
I'm having like an issue with making like a custom premium theme, and I'm going through a bunch of tutorials and like learning how to do it. But like actually going down towards like a custom post and like picking out different attributes and different properties of that post and then displaying it the way I want to display it, even if it's not in a format post.
So you build out templates for custom posts.
Yeah. So here's a couple tips though I'll give you on this stuff that we've learned here. Is on the theme side, I would much rather create a self-contained plugin. So like we always have a news plugin that we built ourselves. We always have a team plugin that we've always built ourselves, things that we use a lot in a lot of different projects. But instead of having that custom post type and all that stuff in your theme, you can self-contain all of that. Create your post types, your taxonomies, all that stuff from within the plugin. Do your templates all there. That way, if we need it in a project, we just hit activate. If we don't, we smoke it.
Wow.
It's already there, already set up.
No, you can put custom. They don't even have to be theme based. You put a custom post type in a plugin, and you can ship that from project to project to project. I mean, this is why WordPress is so popular, man. It's so extendable. It's unbelievable.
And that's what we do. Honestly, we have our default setup that we always start with. It's got our custom theme that we've built, just basically ready to rock and roll. We've got a handful of our custom plugins, like the custom dashboard, the custom branded login plugin, and then we've got, like I said, the team plugin, the news plugin, our gallery / slider plugin for those dumbasses that have to have sliders.
That's I'm actually having a issue with mine too.
Well, we used to use that Slider Revolution.
Oh no, mine's is all custom made. If you would like to look at my portfolio, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Well, years ago, we used that slider revolution, and I got so sick of that because clients couldn't use it. It was too big and too crappy, and so we just said the hell with
I
it.
just use for all that stuff, especially usually the homepage hero. Because if I'm gonna let my client change stuff in it, I just use I custom code out the shell for it, like the design and stuff, and then I just the content in it and maybe the button and stuff. I'm gonna throw into what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a module. What the heck? Why don't I remember? A widget.
Widget.
I'm gonna throw it into a widget, and I'm just gonna be like, all right, you go here, and this is where you change some stuff. That's how you do it. Because I don't allow them to get too creative with it, to be honest, because it pisses me off too when they ruin my portfolio pieces.
Well, we used to use Visual Composer a little bit here too, and I got sick of clients having the ability to go in and jack with stuff there. And honestly, I hate to develop with it because I can do stuff way faster from the code.
Oh, and it's so bad. It's
Yeah.
so badly built. When it like exports code, Visual Composer, it's retarded. It doesn't make any sense.
Huge. So yeah, I mean that's why we did what we did is basically we just leverage ACF fields. Our theme is nothing but a series of ACF fields with
Well,
repeat.
that's say that. I mean, what I'll generally do is I'll do ACF. Only I keep the layout real simple. Like no one's coming in there and changing the whole layout of the page, like at all.
So in ours, you do have the ability to add rows and columns, right? So worst case, that's the only thing they can do. Everything else is just a strict ACF field, unless somebody goes in and writes some code in a WYSIWYG, which we very seldom do. They can't really touch code. The worst they can do is change a column size from 50% to 100 or something like that, right? That is the only thing they can do. Now they can move the rows up and down and reorder.
Columns?
What's that?
Your ACF fields are responsive columns. How did you build that up? Bootstrap?
No, I hate Bootstrap.
Really? What do you use? Foundation?
We use our own styles that we put together. I hate floats, to be honest with you. I would much rather use inline block elements for that. Now there's a place and a time to use both. If it's a straight fixed, this is going to be 50%, this is going to be 50% until
Bootstrap 4 is all inline blocks. I'm pretty sure.
Well, here's what's going to happen. All that's going to be obsolete as soon as these browsers start to accept the grid.
Yes,
right. So I've played with that, and that's really cool. But until then, I have my own floated.
What's that? 5 years down the road?
Yeah, we'll see.
But there's probably going to be AI that does what we do by then too. So
it boils down to if you need it to break on its own as it goes down, or if you want it to always retain. If it's always going to retain, unless you do a media query, I do inline blocks, and that's the majority of what we do. If I need it to break, like if it's a gallery or something with image, and it's dynamic, then we use the float grid. But we still use our own because the Bootstrap's too much in my opinion.
I just like it because of the development time for me.
I like materialized CSS. That's my preferred CSS framework.
It just goes so fast. I mean, I know Bootstraps and Foundation. I know Bootstrap and Foundation so well that like I sit down and I want to build out something, like it's gonna take me like no time at all.
Yeah.
Have you tried semantic?
Huh?
Have you tried semantic UI?
I've looked into it.
You can grab just the CSS you want, so they have everything split out. I mean, you can grab the whole thing just like you can with Bootstrap, but you can grab just stuff for forms, or just stuff for buttons, or just stuff for layout.
Well, yeah, no, that's true. That's the same. You can do the same thing in Bootstrap. You can build out custom.
Right, but you have to upload the Bootstrap. You have to use the Bootstrap CSS file that has everything in it. I'm saying you could pull. You don't.
No, right on their site. Yeah, you can build out your own Bootstrap CSS file. Select whatever you want.
Well, you still got to pull the JavaScript and all that shit with it.
No, you don't. There's no JavaScript.
Yes, there is. If you want to use full
if you're using things like what is it? If you're using things like some of the special things like their overlay toolkits and stuff like that, then you do. But you don't need to load out the JavaScript at all.
Well, yeah, if you don't want to use the bells and whistles, I suppose.
I don't know.
I mean, I use it purely for CSS Grid. Everything else I build custom, and I know the classes so quickly. I'm just like, I build out
Scrap either. I think
framework.
Semantic also has cooler elements. You know, they've got some cool like card elements. You know, it looks more like a web app than it does a website. You know.
Yeah, I think it depends. I mean, I think it depends. Oh, I like that. I like Semantic. I do like the feel of it. I think it's really dependent on what exactly you're building too. If you're building something with a lot of UI elements, something like Semantic's a lot better. I like Bootstrap, and I like to minimize it and only build out UI elements where I need to, just to like for really small files. You know what I mean?
All I care about is getting grids to play right. And like I said, we just built our own because I didn't like any of them. The rest of it, I just hand roll. I've got so much CSS laying around here that we've used in so many different projects and so many JavaScript functions laying around. Honestly, half the time when we build something now, basically like when one of the developers comes up and like, hey, I need to do this, how do I do this? The first thing I think is, what project did I just do that on? I go find it and say, go grab the code and do it. Not a lot of from scratch coding around here anymore. A lot of it is just stuff that we've built over the years that just still works.
Yeah, you know, I really got to get into that stuff some more because I don't know, man. I don't remember a lot of this stuff I built.
My big Nazi thing here with the developers is, if you're going to build something, build that thing A, as clean and simple as possible, but B, build it so we can reuse it for something else down the road, right? Because we're always going to need something. Tabs, you know,
Sure.
everything we've done from scratch, and we've just got the functions laying around from somewhere somehow. Someday
how do you do that stuff? How do you organize that stuff?
It's all right there.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing my memory is like that. It just doesn't work.
Well, one of these days, I need to take. Well, our theme, our pre-built theme, right, that we've got, it's got all this stuff in there. The stuff that we always use all the time. It's already there. If it's more one-off kind of stuff, I can usually remember what project usually we did that on. But one of these days, I need to get like some kind of a way to organize some of these code snippets.
Yeah, like a code repo or something, man. Like, but not necessarily like. I mean, you can do that with GitHub by just making the kind of like the paste bins, you know, but they're like private, and then you.
Well, I started trying to do that a long time ago in Confluence. I set up in our space a place to start doing that, and I stopped updating it, so it's probably about 2 years old at this point. But
you do Trello cards.
Yeah, shoot, you can't search Trello cards very good.
That's true.
But I got to roll, guys. I got to get going. But good meeting.
Yeah, no, it was interesting.
So
it was interesting.
I'm going to try over the weekend to get these recordings up. I've been slacking on that, so.
So look, I'm looking in a lot of discovery stuff, and just to look at my own process in that too. So if anyone's got anything in that world, I know Spence, you already shared some of that with me. I'm looking to get a whole bunch of different ones and kind of pick out my favorite parts. So I don't know, Jarek, if you got anything like that you can share.
I mean, I have creative that we use. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
I also have a sales script that I wrote when I first started doing sales to try to help me remember all the discovery questions I needed to ask.
Sure.
All right, guys, I'm out. I'll see y'all
later.
Absolutely.